Somehow, we all expected the 2024 F1 season to be predictable and somewhat boring because it all seemed like a sure dominant year for Max Verstappen and Red Bull. However, things took another turn as the season produced different race winners from 3 different teams, including 2 unexpected F1 victories. This one is a wild ride, so fasten your seatbelts as we wind the clock back to the very beginning, exploring the 2024 F1 season in just 10 minutes. You see, off and on the track for Red Bull had different stories. Off track, the team was dealing with controversy around Christian Horner's misconduct investigations, but on track, Red Bull gave us an ominous early performance. Red Bull was clearly comfortable racing in Bahrain's pre-race, and of course they had easy wins right after the season started. Max was comfortably beating his teammate Sergio Perez and even rival teams, and this is why everyone thought that the whole season would be one-sided. It was just like the only goal left for Max to achieve was beating his own record from 2023. But just as he was about to win his 5th race since the start of the season, a brake fire at the Australian Grand Prix shattered his plans, which forced him to retire from the race. And guess who took that opportunity? Carlos Sainz. He claimed a memorable win, which was just like giving his just removed appendix a middle finger. What a victor. However, Max's victories on either side of Australia were significant in the winning margin. His advantage over the next non-Red Bull car was 25 seconds in Bahrain, 18 seconds in Saudi Arabia, 20 seconds in Japan, and 13 seconds in China. But it wasn't all smooth for Red Bull, as rumors about Max leaving for Mercedes in 2025 circulated. Before Red Bull could catch a break, they spent almost all of the Saudi Arabian GP debunking the news. While all that was ongoing, Red Bull's armor was showing some cracks that suggested the end of their dominance, and frustratingly for Red Bull fans, the months that followed proved that it wasn't mere speculation. It all started with the compelling drama surrounding Red Bull, which continued well into the eve of Florida race after the team confirmed that the technical director Adrian Newey would leave in early 2025. Red Bull got the whole media's attention, even fans were not left out. But while no one was watching, McLaren arrived with an upgrade package aimed at making its car more of an all-rounder. The team traded off some of its high-speed prowess for some gains in slow and medium-speed corners, and was secretly and quietly confident in this upgrade. Honestly, nothing was spectacular in the sprint race, as McLaren was underwhelming, but then Sunday came and it was a different story. The day started with a visit from Donald Trump, but still, at the time, it didn't look like there was going to be a victory. Max started leading as usual at the Miami Grand Prix, and the only problem was just a collision with the bollard at the chicane under the interstate. Norris began to move up the field as Max and his rivals pitted around him. It was continued well until his patient approach was rewarded on lap 29 when a safety car came out for a collision between Logan Sargent and Kevin Magnussen. That was it, the perfect moment Norris needed. That allowed him to pit and remain in the lead, and of course, he maintained it until the finish, keeping Max at arm's length. While some called that luck, you can't deny that it had something to do with McLaren's upgrades. This set the grounds for curiosity. Was it a one-time thing for McLaren, or do we now have a car that could challenge Red Bull? Well, the next race at Imola saw Red Bull bring its own upgrade, hoping to re-establish the gap of the opening rounds, but McLaren stayed close. Max and Norris locked out the front row together and raced off into the distance in a contest of their own. One moment, it felt like Max had the win locked up, but at the closing laps, a warning flag for track limit violations for Max coincided with Norris's car coming alive in the final stint. With Max being cautious, Norris somehow moved close right up, but he didn't just get close enough to close the gap, finishing 0.7 seconds behind Max. Norris didn't accept defeat in his heart, saying that he would have won if only the race was 1 lap longer. Anyways, that only answered our question. McLaren was in for a fight. While McLaren was closing in, some teams were also looking for a crack in Red Bull's walls. Ferrari, for example, started the season as Red Bull's biggest rival. The team also upgraded, but unfortunately it could not get the same result that McLaren got. But in Monaco, a place where Charles Leclerc, Monaco's hero, had never won, Ferrari became the main target. It was as if the streets welcomed the SF24 better than others at the end of the race. Leclerc finally got what he always wanted, a win in his own home. And to make things serious, Leclerc had broken Verstappen's run of 8 consecutive pole positions, which stretched back to last year's season finale in Abu Dhabi, and was able to control the race out in front as a result. Red Bull's car was in really bad place all weekend, and Verstappen could only qualify 6th, where he would finish. Both Ferraris and McLarens finished ahead of him, while Verstappen's fight in the race was with the Mercedes car of George Russell and Lewis Hamilton. Though we didn't know it, that was just the tip of the iceberg in the 2024 season. Ferrari might have left Monaco on a high, but that was just like a one-time thing for them, as they faded over the 2 months that followed. But Red Bull's nightmare was far from over, as Mercedes moved up the spot while McLaren continued to rise. The series followed with a surprising pole position for Russell in Canada. Although Mercedes had introduced a new front wing in Monaco, it had little noticeable impact on the performance. However, a consolatory breakthrough came from Mercedes during the Montreal race as the team made an eye-opening discovery. Though Russell didn't win because of a key mistake while leading, the team took lessons and would use them later. Norris also didn't win because he found himself on the other side of a safety car luck that he had in Miami when the race was neutralized too late for McLaren to react appropriately. Without stress, Max won again and went ahead to show his championship credentials in Spain. Although Norris had beat Max to a pole position earlier, a sluggish getaway let Verstappen lead into turn 1 and eventually the overall win, extending his title lead to 69 points. You know, McLaren saw the impact of their upgrade and continually refined their cars, and of course they got more and more performance as they kept going. Norris, filled with the energy of regrets from several opportunities that slipped away from his fingers, kept pushing through, and again, Max felt the heat. Max, who wanted to defend his title at all costs, held the ground as Norris made several optimistic lunges down the inside of turn 3, and then came to a collision 2 laps from the end. Norris tried to go around the outside, but the pair made contact. Norris would end up retiring from the race, sacrificing a big chunk of points in the process, as Max recovered to 5th. However, the one who benefited the most was Russell in 3rd, who claimed Mercedes' first win since November of 2022. And while Mercedes inherited a win in Austria, with people tying it to a game of luck, a win on merit came at the British Grand Prix a week later. Russell had beaten Norris and Hamilton to the pole on Saturday, where Max settled for 4th. The next day showed a contest at Silverstone, which was captivating. As had become a theme of their season since Miami, McLaren threw away a win for both Norris and Oscar Piastri, with 2 questionable strategy calls on either side of the race. This saw Hamilton win his first race since Max took the title away from him in 2021, confirming the progress Mercedes has finally made with its most recent upgrade. Max recovered well to the 3rd position, minimizing the championship damage done by Norris in 2nd, but Mercedes now looked like a legitimate contender for victories alongside with McLaren. Hamilton's win was my personal favorite this season. Which one was yours? Let me know in the comments below. By this point in the season, the alarm bells at Red Bull were ringing loudly, with Perez in a startling spiral form. At Silverstone, he crashed out of qualifying, and he did it again ahead of the Hungarian Grand Prix. At the Budapest race, it would have been really difficult for Red Bull because Max was busy arguing with Red Bull pit wall over the radio. Later, he clashed with Hamilton, which saw him finish 5th. Up ahead, McLaren eventually got it right, albeit with a bit of a mess. Piastri won for the first time in F1, but that didn't happen until Norris obeyed a team order after a great deal of pleading and cajoling from the McLaren pit wall to hand back the position. McLaren had given Norris a much more favorable strategy to fend off the threat of Hamilton behind, which wound up allowing him to leapfrog Piastri. Before Belgium, Red Bull knew Perez had to up his game. Max qualified early but later dropped to 11th after an engine change penalty. As for Perez, he qualified 2nd in the rain, but in the race, he faded disappointingly. The race ended with a thrill as Russell did 1 stop fewer than his rivals and won. He held off teammate Hamilton and Piastri in the closing stages, but he later lost the win hours later because of technical infringement. After everything, the trophy stayed with Mercedes as Hamilton moved up to 1st. After Russell was disqualified, Leclerc was moved up onto the podium, which was Ferrari's 2nd since Monaco. Max was leading with a strong 79 points with a few dramatic setbacks on his side, and Norris was closing in on him. But despite Max's effort, it was almost as if Red Bull was ready to dance to the tunes of his rival. The team declared sticking with Perez to show him support for his struggles, and in return all he gave Red Bull was 45 points at the Constructors' Championship. That was really low compared with 151 for Max, 134 for Norris, 126 for Hamilton, 119 for Piastri, 84 for Sainz, 82 for Leclerc, and 76 for Russell. By the time the race got to Brazil at the beginning of November, Max was leading Norris by 52 points, still maintaining his momentum. Norris was also fortunate enough to take the pole position with Max, starting 17th, but in the end he delivered one of the greatest drives of his career to take the checkered flag and open up a 62-point gap on Norris, who finished 6th. Eventually, Max closed out the title race in Vegas, coming 5th ahead of Norris. Russell won ahead of Lewis, while Carlos and Leclerc came 3rd and 4th respectively. Max's 4th title cemented him in the pantheon of Formula One's greats, equaling a feat achieved by only 5 other drivers. Hamilton and Schumacher are still well ahead with 7 titles each. while Juan Manuel Fangio has 5 and Alain Prost together with Sebastian Vettel, who like Verstappen won all his titles with Red Bull, have 4 titles. Now we await the next season, which is set to come with even more dramas. If you enjoyed this video, drop a like and subscribe for more.